Blog Talk Radio. Everybody, I'm Tarhaka, Amana LB, and tonight my special guest will be Dr. Walter Williams, and company will be with us here this evening, and the title of this broadcast is Why Did White People Enslave the Negro in America? We'll be dealing with the following questions. What nationality is Negro? What is that? What landmass is associated with that nationality that you're calling Negro? Where on earth is Negro land? Why has the Negro not been given reparations? Why not? What is the true identity of the so-called Negro? Where are the black Egyptians in America today? These are just a few of the questions that we're going to deal with tonight. I'm going down into these commercials, and when we come back, we going in, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all hold your hat in a minute. We'll be right back.
Hello, everybody. I want to introduce you to The Great Debate by Dr. Walter Williams. He single-handedly laid out the facts in this powerful debate against Mr. Munir Muhammad of the Nation of Islam, Chester Blair, a prominent lawyer in Chicago, Illinois, and Reverend Henry Hardy, a prominent minister in Chicago, and Prince Azio ben Israel of the Hebrew Israelites. This debate was hosted by a retired policeman named W.L. Lillard. Now, the whole thing was a setup by Lillard and his gang, but it didn't work. They brought what they believed to the table, but Dr. Walter Williams brought what he knew for a fact and what he could prove and laid it on the table. We are now in the age of knowing. The age of walking around believing in stuff is over. For your copy of The Great Debate, go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org, or contact me by phone. My number's on the website. Oh, and by the way, the lawyer got bust up too. The Great Debate, get your copy today. Good day and peace.
When you know what the Internal Revenue Service is and what their job and duties are, you can use the correct way to deal with them. There's a remedy for you to use. When it comes to the IRS, go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. Fill out the box with your email address that says join our mailing list. The Internal Revenue Service is a private corporation, but there are rules and regulations. Get my free report. Learn about what's going on in America today. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Lose your fear for the Internal Revenue Service by knowing exactly what to do based on what you know about them and what remedies are available to you to use. tarhakadebtelimination.org. Peace. The greatest move you can make beginning in 2022 is to move out of the public and into the private. That's how you get rid of student loans, child support, mortgages, foreclosures, and all this kind of business. Go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Fill out my Contact Us form by leaving your email address, and I'll rush my free report straight to your email box. Our economy is in shambles today for people who insist on living in the public. Move into the private. Make an easy transaction. Go to www.tarhakadebtelimination.org. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Fill out the Contact Us form, and I'll rush you my free report. Okay, everybody, we're back. It appears that my guest is in the queue. I'm going to open up his phone line. Keep in mind, later on in the broadcast, the phone lines will be open for everybody. And the number to dial into the broadcast is 515-605-9757. And if you have something to say, press 1 on your phone. That will give me an indication that you have something to say, and I would open up the phone line so you can get in. Let me go here to area code 773. Dr. Williams, we're live on the air. Are you with us?
Yes, I'm here, Dr. Tarhaka LB. Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir. You're coming across loud and clear.
Okay, that's great then.
Well, before we get down into this thing, you want to fill all the new people in, because the switchboard is lighting up over here on the great debate and what's going on. It sounds like you got some background noise going on over there.
On my phone line, you mean?
Yes, sir. It sounds like it's on your phone line. I don't know if he's on a speaker or whether you got the actual show running on some type of computer or radio device or something. It's just background echo there.
Is it it's still there now?
No, I don't hear it now.
Okay.
It's on now.
All right. Well then, I just moved the phone closer to my mouth. That's all.
Okay.
So, Mm-hmm. So we want to talk about, you mentioned something about the Great Debate. Well, the Great Debate tape was done on a television show that I was invited on in the year 1993. The year 1993 was the year that my first book came out, The Historical Origin of Christianity, where I was announcing to the world that there's never been a man that ever walked the earth in human form of any race, creed, or color by the name of Jesus Christ. So that book was out, and that book began to slowly circulate throughout the African community, not only in Chicago, but throughout America at that time. But there was a group of people in Chicago that wanted to prove me wrong. And one of those people were a man by the name of W.L. Lillard. And so what he did, he got a group of people together, religious people, and also a lawyer, because I was saying that we Africans born in the United States of America are not citizens of the United States of America due to the Constitution drawn up in 1787. So the lawyer was there to prove me wrong. And W.L. Lillard set this all up for my defeat and for my demise. So it was done in February 1993. So he set all this up. And the participants in that great debate tape was a man by the name of Prince Asiel Ben Israel. I want to announce at this moment that Prince died this past Wednesday. So he was one of the first ones on that tape that came out and spoke first, trying to bring his point home about the Black Hebrew Israelites and so forth and so on. So the next person on that tape was a minister by the name of Reverend Henry Hardy. Now, Reverend Henry Hardy today is still alive. So he had a big church here in Chicago, a big Christian church. So he was the second guest that W.L. Lillard had on this program. Now, the third person on that great debate tape and program was a man by the name of Munir Muhammad. He was a follower of Elijah Muhammad of the Nation of Islam. So he was on there. Then, like I said, this lawyer was on there, Chester L. Blair. He was on there. And he was supposed to make me wrong according to the Constitution. It was drawn in 1787 when I said that we, as Africans born in the United States of America, are not citizens of the United States of America. So he was there to defend that. And then there was W.L. Lillard. He was there. He set all this up, like I said before, for my demise. But, however, it didn't work out like that. So that is the Great Debate tape. It's a very, very interesting tape that I departed a lot of information and in defending myself. And so I advise everybody if they could, I think they can purchase that tape from you. Is that correct, Brother Tarhaka?
Yes, sir. The only thing they have to do is go over there to tarhakadataelimination.org, and they'll see the donation button there. Just do a donation of $29.95, and we will send the private links and stuff right straight to their email so that they can look at the Great Debate. That's how to go about getting the Great Debate.
Okay, that's great then. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
I urge everyone to get that great debate tape. Tarhaka.
okay. All right. Dr. Williams, I know you spoke to me about another guest that would be coming in, and if they could just dial into the broadcast 515-605-9757 and press 1 on the phone, that will give me an indication that they wish to join us, and then we're ready to go. But I want to start with you. Why did white people enslave the so-called Negro in America?
Well, the main reason and the only reason is this. They know who we are as an African people. They know who our ancestors are, and that being, our ancestors being the ancient Egyptians, who were the first civilized people on this planet. Our ancestors had the greatest and most advanced civilization that was ever being presented or created on this earth, meaning that our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, lived in the continent of Africa in a country called Egypt. In that country called Egypt, civilization emerged from that culture of African people, known in history as the ancient Egyptians. So when Alexander the Greek came into Egypt in 332 BCE, the first European to ever set foot inside of Egypt, he saw the great and grand and glorious civilization that he has ever seen, or anyone has ever seen in life. And he wanted to be made part of that great culture and civilization. Now, mind you, the Melkite Coptic Egyptians who ran the government of ancient Egypt greeted them, to Egypt, and not knowing that they were there to stay and occupy ancient Egypt and destroy the culture of the ancient Egyptians, knowing that and seeing that they were not going to leave, they learned the Greek language from the Greeks in order to communicate with them. Now, mind you, they were in the world, the part of the world where civilization came from, which was ancient Egypt. They were in the world of literate people. Our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, were the world's first and oldest literate people because they created an alphabet to make themselves literate. And an alphabet is the first thing that an individual learns when they go to school. They learn the alphabet, the ABCs. And with that alphabet, you're able to read, write, and spell, knowing that alphabet. And from that alphabet also comes the musical scale of do, re, mi, so, fa, la, ti, do. That's the musical scale. And the ancient Egyptians were the world's first musicians to ever play music on this world. And the world's first musicians were females of ancient Egypt. So also to create all forms of mathematics in order to build things. Mathematics is the only key to anyone on planet Earth to have the knowledge of in order for them to build anything. So in the meantime, the mathematics that was created in Egypt, the ancient Egyptians, those Africans, used a mathematical formula to build the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid is the greatest edifice that has ever been built by man. It stands today, as I speak, 400. It was built originally 490 feet high in the air, reduced down today to 480 feet. And that pyramid today is on the back of your dollar bill that you carry in your pocketbooks, your purses, and your wallets every day. So if you didn't know that, go to your pocketbook, purse, or wallets and pull out a dollar bill. And on that dollar bill, you'll see the greatest edifice that's ever been built by man. And on each side of the pyramid, it spans 756 feet wide on each side. 756 feet wide on each side. And he also built another great monument called the Sphinx. The Sphinx spans over 2 blocks, 2 city blocks. And it also has a face carved in stone, 6 feet above, 6 stories above. You'll see that Sphinx with its African face carved in stone on the Great Sphinx. Now, this is what the Greeks saw when they came into Egypt, and they wanted to be made part of this. So they were rejected by our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians. And with that rejection, the Greeks, they were very brutal, typical Europeans. They terrorized our Melchite Coptic ancient Egyptians into letting them take over Egypt, which they did. And with that takeover of ancient Egypt, they cut off the culture of our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, and that's exactly what they want. Exactly what they wanted to do. So, let's follow the ancient Egyptians until we get to America. In 1091, the uncivilized Spanish people living in Spain ask the ancient Egyptians of North Africa, to come to bring civilization to uncivilized Spain. Now, mind you, Egypt, as I speak, borders the Mediterranean. West of Egypt is Libya, a country called Libya, which borders the Mediterranean, and Tunisia, which borders the Mediterranean, and Morocco, which borders the Mediterranean, and Medina, which borders parts of the Pacific and the Mediterranean. And these countries, today as I speak, are still bordering the Mediterranean. But the uncivilized Spanish people ask now, the ancient Egyptians, to come to Spain to bring civilization, and that year was 1091. So, answering the call of the Spanish people, the ancient Egyptians used a country called Morocco to go to Spain, because Morocco, or in Morocco, you have a Strait of Gibraltar. And that Strait of Gibraltar takes you closer to Spain than any other countries that borders Spain that I just called. So at the end of the Strait of Gibraltar from Morocco, you have to take a boat 8.9 miles to travel to Spain. And once in Spain, the Spanish people called our African ancient Egyptian ancestors black or Moors. And black in Spanish is synonymous with Negro. It's very important to understand that. And they began, like I mentioned, to call them black or Moors. So they stayed over there in Spain under the name of black or Moors, which was given to them by the Spanish people, which is a nickname. It's a nickname, black or Moors. And of course, like I said, it's synonymous with the word Negro. And that's the name that they were identified with. And they began to build over in Spain. First thing they did was learn the Spanish language, and they applied an alphabet to that Spanish language. And that Spanish language today has that alphabet still intact. And then the next thing they did was set up a government of Spain. So the Spanish people can have some type of civility and some type of organization. And they organized a government for them. The third thing that they did was that they began to build all over Spain cities such as Toledo, Granada, Seville, etc. And they laid out those cities and streets and built buildings over there. And they also introduced public bath houses over there, thus introducing to the Europeans soap. Sometimes on the History Channel, the narrator on the History Channel will say that the Europeans had soap or used soap in the 12th century. In other words, that narrator is telling you, for the people that didn't know, that in the 12th century, the Europeans began to use soap. And that introduction to soap for the Europeans over in Spain was introduced by our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, using and creating bathhouses, public bathhouses in Spain for the Spanish people. Now, this went on over there in Spain for 397 years. But before and during that time, the seat of Christianity was moved out of northeast Africa, out of the double-walled city of Constantinople, out of the world's first seat of Christianity, and which is the Church of Hagia Sophia. The Church of Hagia Sophia was built when the Melkite Coptic Egyptians created this non-human called Christ and the non-human called the Virgin Mary at Ephesus in 431, Ephesus, Turkey. So that seat was threatened by the Ottoman Turks, who had charge, was in charge over there in that part of the world, in northeast Africa and in Egypt, etc., etc. And when that seat was transferred in 1439 by John VIII, knowing that it was imminent that the Ottoman Turks would soon break through that wall of Constantinople and seize Constantinople and seize the Church of Hagia Sophia. So in 1439, he went to Florence, Italy, a curia there. The word C-U-R-I-A means college. And he went to a curia in Ferrara, Italy, and he relinquished what is known in history as a donation of Constantine in order for that seat to be moved out of Northeast Africa, out of the Church of Hagia Sophia, the first seat of Christianity. And there were 6 humanists from Florence, Italy, the curia of the college in Florence, Italy, and there were 6 humanists from the college in Ferrara, Italy. Now, mind you, in 1439, the Renaissance era of Europe had just begun. It was in about the 40th or 50th year of the Renaissance era of Europe. The Renaissance era of Europe, as you know, was an era that called for the Europeans to come out of the darkness into the light. They did not have the knowledge of how to build anything, because it takes mathematics to do that. They didn't have that knowledge of mathematics to build anything. So what they did was that these 6 humanists, or that is now 12 humanists, 6 from each college, Florence and Ferrara, Italy, they became the ones that received the church as it was transferred out of Northeast Africa, out of the Hagia Sophia, out of Constantinople, Turkey. Constantinople, Turkey, today is known as Istanbul, Turkey. Now, these humanists, a humanist today will be called an intellectual. So these 12 intellectuals went to the authorities in Rome, Italy, and asked them, could they give them an allotment of land to build the second seat of Christianity in Italy. And the authorities in Rome gave these 12 humanists, who were the ones that received the church after it was transferred from Constantinople that I mentioned before. And they got this allotment of land on the outskirts of Rome, near the catacombs. And when that happened, they called to Spain for the Moors to come into Spain, come from Spain rather, into Italy to build what we have today over in that part of the world, or the Vatican today, as the Vatican. Okay? And the Moors came in, and they surveyed the area, and they began to lay out the Vatican as we know it today. Now, over there, what they laid out over there, that we know as the Vatican today, was only a replica of the double-walled city of Constantinople in Northeast Africa. So they made a replica of that, where the first seat of Christianity was being on display and being built. So with that in mind, they began to lay out the Vatican, and they began to build the second seat of Christianity over there in the Vatican. And they began to build St. Peter's Church. known today as St. Peter's Basilica. And that's how the second seat of Christianity was established, right there in what we know today as the Vatican. Also, that was in 1445. In 1473, the same Moors in the Vatican built the Sistine Chapel, today where the popes live, and et cetera, et cetera. So now it was time to get rid of these people. So what happened is that Ferdinand and Isabella called for the elimination and the destruction of all the Moors in Spain and in the Vatican. In other words, they called for it's known today as a Spanish Roman Inquisition. And they hired a man by the name of Thomas D. Tarhaka to bring forth the expulsion of the Moors out of Spain, and the Vatican. So now, the Moors went into the bordering country called France, which was next door to Spain, and they scattered throughout parts of Europe, bringing their skills with them, and they came into the countries bordering the Mediterranean and North Africa. They came into Timbuktu, where they set up and bought houses over there and began to build and teach over there. Some of them came into this hemisphere, and it was among the American native people known as the Indians of America, and they came on a ship that Ferdinand and Isabella had hired. The ship was owned by Christopher Columbus. Now, I know there's a debate and a dispute about Christopher Columbus, but we won't go into that. That's another history and another debate. But anyway, they came on this ship in 1492 with Christopher Columbus. And so in 1492 to 1619, 1619 is the time of the advent of slavery in this country. So now, from 1492 to 1619 is a period of 127 years of occupation in this country. During that 127 years, they began to set up civilization in this hemisphere. Now, I don't hear no one talk about that. They only talk about slavery, 1619, and bring slavery forward to this moment of today. But now, what about the 127 years between 1492 and slavery in this country of 1619? And also during that time of building and creating civilization over this hemisphere, in 1619, the inferior, uncivilized, spiritually dead savages of a European brought other human beings, other African human beings out of Africa to be made slaves over in this country. Now, those Africans that they brought over here were learned men and women who knew how to read, write, and mathematics and all the other subjects. But they're going to put a different story on these Africans, said that they were forbidden to read. Okay, well, they already knew how to read. But so, anyway, they, in order to get rid of the Moors again, erased them out of history and out of the minds of the people of modern day world humans. They took these Africans in 1619 and the enslaved ones that they brought out of Africa and put them under one umbrella with the Moors, and in order to erase them again out of history and out of the minds of the masses of the people of the world. And they began to call them Negros. And with the name Negro that was created in 1619, they created a new African, one without a country, a language, and a culture at that time. So they created this new Negro by erasing these great people again out of history. So they thought. Now, today, as I speak, these Africans who are known as the Moors and today known as the Negro are the inferior so-called founding fathers of America, created more havoc and more of a demise for these African people known as Negroes by bringing up in 1787 a worthless document called the United States Constitution. And in that Constitution, they deemed us 3/5 of a human. So therefore, we're not even human in this document, this worthless document that hangs on the wall in Congress today, called United States Constitution. So, in long story short, Brother Tarhaka, that is one of the reasons why, and the main reasons why, they had to put us into slavery, because of who our ancestors are. I didn't say a word, but who our ancestors are, which is the greatest people that's ever walked this earth, known in history as the ancient Egyptians. So that's how it was done, Brother Tarhaka.
Okay, fantastic. Dr. Williams, I certainly appreciate you laying that out. We have callers with the hand raised. I'm going to start off opening up the phone lines at area code 334. Area code 334. You are live on the air. Tell us who you are and where you're calling from. 334. Okay. No 334. All right. Okay, we had another caller with a hand on. Looked like he dropped off. But anyway, Dr. Williams, when it comes to the Moors in America now, oh, wait a minute, we got a caller with his hand raised. Area code 347. You're on the air. Tell us who you are and where you're calling from.
How you doing? It's Shaheem Jones.
Hello, Mr. Jones. Doing just fine.
Hey,
what's your question for our guest?
All right. Is it possible I could get 3 quick questions?
Yeah, go ahead. 3 quick ones.
All right. So I'm from New York City, representing for Brooklyn.
Okay.
Hey, Walter Williams, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How you doing, young man?
All right, I'm so glad to hear your voice. All right. So the first question that I have is about the Seleucus Nicator.
Who now?
So Seleucus Nicator, one of Alexander's successors.
Yeah, right. Seleucus Nicator. Go ahead. Yeah.
So is the seventh of oh man, the name is at the tip of my tongue. The last Egyptian before the Romans took over is female. Oh man, sorry about that. I'm stuck.
Just take your time. Calm down.
Yeah, it's the last. It's supposed to be the last Egyptian female that was there. I wanted to know, she was supposed to be the seventh. What was Seleucus Nicator's daughter's name? That was with Ptolemy, that made the dynasties with them.
Cleopatra.
Say it again.
Cleopatra.
Yeah, Cleopatra. Okay, thank you. So is Cleopatra is that his bloodline from the seventh one? Is that still his bloodline?
Whose bloodline?
Seleucus Nicator's bloodline.
Seleucus Nicator, yes, because you got to remember Seleucus Nicator was a Greek.
Yes. So I wanted to know, because everybody keeps saying that she was African. I wanted to know, was she a mixture of Greek and African, or was she Greek, or was she? I wanted to know, what was she for the last one, because there's a high debate that she was an African.
No, Cleopatra is a title.
All right.
Every Ptolemy who had a wife, their name was Cleopatra, whatever their name were. And that's a title.
All right, so that was just a title.
Right, all Cleopatras were Greek women.
All right, that's all I wanted to know. They was Greek women. All right, so my second question is.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Mind you, obviously they were Greek women. That was a title to all of the Ptolemies' wives. Their names.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. I appreciate that. So the second one is about the Black Madonna. I wanted to know, how did the Black Madonna come into being? Did it come to being when the Roman Catholic Church got to Rome, or was it there when the Hagia Sophia was there?
Well, the Black Madonna story got circulated in the world when the seat of Christianity moved out of Northeast Africa, Church of Hagia Sophia, into the second seat in Rome. The Black Madonna is the Black Madonna is part of the story of the lie that is told when today's Christianity is Western Christianity. That's what it is. So therefore, with the knowledge of with the statements coming out of Western Christianity, it created this Black Madonna story to confuse the world further in their confusion. So the Black Madonna is nothing but a story made up to have an argument over whether this Black Madonna was an African woman or a white woman, or this baby was a black, and so forth. So that's an argument given to the world by the Christians coming out of Europe. So that'd be my answer to you. Do you understand what I was just saying?
I understand exactly what you just said.
Okay.
All right. So my third question is about the Quran. So you said the Quran was formulated by the AIU. So I just want to know a little bit specifics about when it was made in Syria. Like, how did anybody have a meeting for it? How did it come to be? What was the Muslim's name, or the or whoever created it? when they finished created it, basically, who accepted it, and could we get like a specific name? Because we know it was in Syria, or I mean Egypt. I mean, it was in Egypt, but I want to know like specific people that we could look up or something like that.
Yeah, you can. You got to first know about the AIU. That's the first
All right.
place of investigative research. The AIU means the Alliance Israelite Universal of Paris, France. Okay?
All right.
The Alliance Israelite Universal of Paris, France, which was organized in 1860. Okay? That's very important.
All right.
1860. In Paris, France. The Alliance Israelite Universal are the ones that wrote the book called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. You get that
Say
book?
it one more time.
The AIU, Alliance Israelite Universal of Paris, France. They're the ones that organized in 1860. And they're also the ones that wrote the book called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion.
All
and
right.
If you look up the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, they'll tell you that they don't know who wrote the book, but that's a damn lie. It was
Is
AI.
there any literature that I could purchase to get that information?
Yes, you buy the book called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion.
All right. Thank you. All right.
And in that book, The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, the AIU has a chapter in there. And they're the ones that created and wrote that book, The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. Now, with them being organized in 1860 for the very first time in world history, they went into
Egypt?
North, huh? What'd you say?
Sorry, I thought you was asking me a question. I said Egypt. Sorry about that.
No, they went into Syria.
All right, Syria.
Yeah, in 1860. And they created for the Mohammedan world a literary document that's known as the Quran.
All right.
Now, the Mohammedans that lived in that area did not have any literature for Mohammedanism. See, before it was Islam, they practiced Mohammedanism over in that area of the world, Northeast Africa, over in Syria, over in Turkey, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Now, so the AIU took it upon themselves to go into Syria in 1870 with a group of historians from their institution to create literature for the Mohammedan world. Now, the reason why they did that, this is very key, very key. They did that because they wanted to put Abraham in that religion.
So it was so let me just get a clarification. So the AIU is basically the Hebrew society, basically.
No. Just listen to what I'm saying. The reason why
But who needed to bring Abraham into the Quran is what I'm asking.
The AIU.
And the AIU is considered what? They're considered as Israelites, right?
No. No. They are considered a group of people that was created in Paris, France. They are Israelite Universal of Paris, France. Okay? Now,
All right.
and like I said before, just follow me now. The reason why they came over there to do this, to create literature for the Mohammedan world, the main reason, the second reason is that they wanted to make sure that Abraham was added into that third religion. The third religion is based off of the Quran that we know today as the Quran. The Quran today, as we know, is the book that produced today's Islam. Islam is based upon a book called the Quran. But the AIU wanted to make sure, because today, as I speak, you got Abraham in all three major Western religions. You got Christianity, you got Abraham there, you got Abraham in Mohammedanism / Islam, and you got Abraham in Judaism. So you got Abraham is very key here. So they wanted to make sure that Abraham got in that particular religion. And then when they created that Quran in 1780 in Syria, it took the Mohammedan world until 49 years later, the Mohammedan world accepted the Quran as their book of religious literature. Now, this has been done in 1919 in Cairo, Egypt. This was done right after World War I had ended. So that is the answer. And the key thing, like I said before, you get that book, the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. And in that book, a chapter in there is about the AIU. So did I answer your question?
Okay, at the Muse Mike, we've satisfied all three questions. I'm going to the new caller with the hand raised at area code 334. Area code 334, you're on the air. Tell us who you are and where you're calling from.
Yes, my name is Raymond Carter, and I'm from Ozark, Alabama. And I've been listening to Dr. Williams for a while, and I have learned a whole lot from him and still learning. And you know, I'm just satisfied with what he's doing and how he's bringing up stuff. But, you know, it's just kind of hard for people to get away from the Bible. They don't want to learn, you know. The Bible ain't nothing but a business. It's money out of it, and about this Jesus, it's just a business for people. They're making billions of dollars for them. You know, it's not saving nobody.
Okay.
Now, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right, my brother. You have anything else to say? Or any questions?
No, I'm just enjoying it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, well,
yeah.
Thanks for listening in, and thanks for enjoying it, and you keep on evolving, keep on learning. The truth should set you free.
Okay, well, Dr. Williams, we've been going for a while. I'm going to take a little quick break, and when I come back, we can go on down into some more of these questions here.
Okay.
All right, we'll be back in a moment. Y'all hold your hat. Okay, Dr. Williams. Now, the question that I have for you at this moment is, what is the current status of the IOU, the AOU, or that came out with the document for the Mohammedans? What are the current status in the world today? I haven't heard anything about them lately.
Well, they're over there. They settled over there in the illegal state of Israel. They're the ones that set up over there in the illegal state of Israel after the United States and Great Britain took Cam Weissman, the chemist, before the UN in 1947 and said, give this man and his organization a piece of Palestine to make a statehood. So they're over there today, as I speak, over there in the illegal state of Israel, calling themselves Israeli. So that's the status of them today, as I speak.
Okay, now in your opinion, what would it take for there to be peace in that region? What would have to happen?
Well, if you want peace, according to the Israelis over there, they want all the Palestinians to be pushed into the Mediterranean Sea. They want them to be destroyed and eradicated forever being in existence over there. See? So that's what they want. And that's what they're striving for. Because you got Palestine originally consists of 10,434 square miles. Today, as I speak, over 9,000 miles is being occupied by the Israelis over there. So they really don't ate up a whole lot of territory over in that world as we know it today. So that is, you can never have peace. There's no intentions of having peace over there. If one will get a book called Facing a Cruel Mirror by Michael Ben Zohar, and that will explain what I'm talking about. Because without reading that book, you will not have an understanding of what's happening over there and what will continue to be happening over there. And this country called the United States of America condones and supports that government that was created, that illegal government that was created over there. And that government over there went against the Balfour Declaration of 1917 that was drawn up in the British Parliament when Walter Lionel Rothschild took this chemist called Cam Weissman, who lived in Mansfield, England, during World War I. World War I is 1914 to 1918. 1917, Walter Lionel Rothschild, a member of the British Parliament, took Cam Weissman, this chemist, before that body of politicians, and told that body of politicians that this man, Cam Weissman, a chemist, could make Great Britain a chemical bomb to end that war. Now, that World War I was created because of the Germans were over in that region to help the Ottoman Turks build a railroad system over there, et cetera, et cetera. And they didn't want the Germans to really be over there with the Ottoman Turks because of all their oil over there, you see. So that's what happened over in that part of the world. So today, in 1917, James Arthur Balfour, B-A-L-F-O-U-R, created a document called the Balfour Declaration of 1917. And that declaration, called the Balfour Declaration, was supposed to give Cam Weissman and his Zionist organization a piece of Palestine to make a statehood. But that didn't happen. When World War I ended, they reneged on that agreement with Cam Weissman. So in 1940, a group called the Stern Gang was organized by Abram Stern, who went in Jerusalem and bombed that hotel in Jerusalem, bombed it, and in order to get back at the British for reneging on what is known as the Balfour Declaration, and the Stern Gang also killed 2 British agents over there. You see, so this brought on a different attitude over there. So in 1947, that's when the United States government and the British government went before the UN in New York and asked the UN to give an allotment of land over in Palestine so these Israelis that we know today could make a statehood. So that's part of the history of that.
Okay, so now, in your personal opinion, let's say that being that we know that the state of Israel is an illegal state, a people that was put on land that other people were already at and already occupied and already there. So do you think that there will be peace in the region if all of the Israelis was rounded up and removed and put back where they was originally at?
They're not going to do that. They went over there.
But do you think there would be peace if something like that took place?
No, they didn't. There's no intention to have peace over there. The intention is to run those people, the Palestinians who were already there, in Northeast Africa. This is Northeast Africa we're talking about. To run those people out of there, and they don't want them there. Like I said before, you get this book by Michael David Ben Zohar, Facing Their Ugly Mirror, and he will explain all that to you. They don't intend to have peace over there. They want those people called the Palestinians out. Like I mentioned before, Palestine consists of 10,434 square miles, and they don't occupy over 9,000 miles thus far. So now, how much more land is there left for the Palestinians? You see? So that would be my answer to you.
Okay, well, on that line, my question would be, in your opinion, why has the so-called Negro in America never been given reparations up until this day, in your opinion?
Well, like I said before, the Negro is not going to ever have reparations coming from the Europeans. See, the reason why I said that is this. The so-called founding fathers of this country set that up on purpose. In order for this country to give reparations to the Negro, that the white race that controls this country would have to apologize to us as a people for putting our ancestors into slavery. They're not going to apologize for that. That's impossible. They're not going to do that. And the second thing they will have to do in order to give us reparation is to destroy that worthless document called the United States Constitution, whereby in that Constitution it says that we are 3/5 of a human being. They're not going to do that. And they would have to destroy that document and rewrite a new one with us being full citizens in that document. So that they're not going to do that. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm saying that we will never get reparations in this country from the Europeans, because he would have to apologize to us for putting our ancestors in enslavement, and he has to create a new document called the Constitution, and tear the old one up and write a new one with us in there as human beings. Because the old document said that we were 3/5 of a human. We're not even humans. See? So that's the reason why I said that, Brother Tarhaka.
Okay, now, as far as the Negro, the so-called Negro in America, you told us that slavery, they stopped bringing slaves here from Africa, but we have our people, a large segment of our people already here are absolutely indigenous to this land prior to there ever been in slavery. So I know what they did, because as far as my family is concerned, we were never slaves. We didn't come in from Africa. We've always been here. But they told me that my grandfather had been kidnapped here from in one state and sold into another state in slavery, and then he escaped. So would it be safe to say that this is our land?
Well, you got to give the Native American Indian as being the rightful occupant of this land over here called North America. That you have to do. You have to give him that status of understanding and that status of knowledge and information over here first. That's what you have to do. And then
So now you're saying that the so-called Native Indian is the original indigenous occupied of this land. So that would mean that his remains, or had to be the oldest remains found on this landmass.
not necessarily.
Okay, so if the Africans, or so-called black people, or the people they call the Negro, if their remains are the oldest found in this region, and based on the research that we found, that the so-called Asians, calling Native Indians, have been occupying this land for about 10,000 years, but prior to that, the so-called Negro in them oldest remains are here, which means they were here already here. So now I need to know, why would I have to give somebody, these people, credit for being native when there are people who were already absolutely indigenous? There's a difference from being indigenous and native. There's a difference between that. You follow what I'm saying?
Okay.
And now we got, when you say Indians, and I know that I could appreciate these people saying, giving information about their tribal affiliations. But when you say Indians, the only Indians that I know came from the country called India. And so these people, and when you say native, that means they've occupied this land for quite a while. But when you are absolutely indigenous, that means you have always been here from the beginning.
Okay.
But that's just my little take on that. But go ahead, I'm listening.
Now, what you're trying to do, Brother Tarhaka, is give the African two places of being an indigenous people. You can't do that. Every individual human on earth has their status of being indigenous to the land that they live in. So the African is indigenous to Africa. He can't be indigenous to two places at one time. So
okay, so now let's say that's absolutely true that you just said. Let's say that. So that would have to mean that there were no people, no Moors or Egyptians, none of these people indigenous to this land. This land was just here. There was nobody on the land but these so-called Indians, and then everybody else can't live. And then so that means that the archaeologists, anthropologists and stuff, and the remains that they have dug up, they've all been telling us a lie.
Well, you can't.
That's if you, because I can't see how, because based on the information that I have, this is the old world, not the new world. And there were people here prior to any of this stuff starting, prior to any Europeans, prior to any Asians coming over, and absolutely indigenous to this land. I don't believe that all of us came to this land from Africa. I believe that we was already here.
Well, you see, like I said before, you cannot occupy two land areas on Earth and say that you're indigenous to that land area. You got to be, you got to come from some place. You got to be indigenous in some place on Earth. So, for argument's sake, let's give the indigenous Indian that we know. We're using that word indigenous Indian to the indigenous people, Indians that live in this hemisphere. Give them their land. And because we have our own land.
But wait a minute now, you talking about the native so-called Indians. Is that right?
I'm talking about what they call today as a native Indian. That's what I'm talking about. So give them some place of occupation on this planet we call Earth. And of course we, as African people, and African people have our own land area of being indigenous to, which is Africa. Okay? We got our own land area. The Europeans has got his own land area to be indigenous, which is Europe. The Chinese got their own land area to be indigenous, which is China. The Indians of India got their own land area to be indigenous, which is India. Okay? So every race of people on Earth have their own land area to identify themselves as being indigenous to. So what I'm saying to you, Brother Tarhaka, we cannot be indigenous in two land areas. We got to give it up. See? And you can't go by...
I would have to be, some people would have to give it up. But nevertheless, Dr. Williams, I'm going to take another little break, and when we come back, we can proceed.
Okay.
Hold on. I'll be right back.
All right.
Egypt has always traditionally been given prominence as the height of ancient culture. Nubia is now coming into its own and is being understood to be of equal importance. It is different from ancient Egypt, but it is equally important and not just an adjunct to this Egyptian culture. What archaeologists do when they pull material from the ground or when they translate texts, they bring their own cultural baggage to that interpretation and the baggage of the times that they live in. And so it's imperative that we go back and continually reassess the things that we take as facts. Many of the early archaeologists came to the study of ancient Egypt and ancient Nubia from the perspective of Semitic languages or the study of the Hebrew Bible, and it was very important to them to bring Egypt specifically into the sphere of biblical studies. And so they had to carve Egypt away from Africa to bring it into that sphere. And the way that they did that was they used race. So these early archaeologists effectively made ancient Egypt white in the sense that they made it part of a dominant Western culture, and ancient Nubia was separated from that. It was black. And this was how they took Egypt out of Africa and put it into this Semitic sphere, this biblical sphere. And it's only in recent decades, the last 3-4 decades, that Egyptology has really moved away from that. And scholars who are studying Nubia are really given the chance to give a voice to this Nubian material that it wasn't given much of a chance to have in the past. When someone asks me what was the ancient Egyptians' view of X, I immediately think of a two-pronged view, because the ancient Egyptians had an official view of many things, and this is the view that would be put up on the walls of temples and on the walls of the tombs of the elites. That was an official, let's say, state-sanctioned view. That bore little to no resemblance to what people actually may have thought. It was the official view. So when you look at Nubia as depicted on the walls of temples in Egypt, you will see Nubians being crushed under the chariot wheels of the king. You will see Nubians being dragged back to Egypt enslaved. What we see on the ground in terms of archaeological evidence is quite different. We see people who had Nubian names, people who were using Nubian material culture, living within Egypt, working in Egypt, marrying people with Egyptian names. So something quite different from the very intense militaristic scenes that you see in temples. When George Reisner excavated Kerma, he found the statue, a large, beautiful statue of Senui, and also a statue partially destroyed of Jaffa Hapi, her husband. It was a very large tomb, and with size in Egypt and in Nubia, we tend to assume ruler, or someone very important, which usually translates to ruler. We now understand, yes, this was a ruler's tomb. It is a completely different time period than Jaffa Hapi and Senui lived in. Much later, we understand it to be a local ruler, so it was a Kerman official, who, for reasons we can guess at, brought or had these two statues brought to Kerma and put in his tomb. It could have been an appropriation of Egyptian culture in general, just to show that, yes, I can own these things that are Egyptian wonderful works of art. Because what we're saying, if you read between the lines, is whoever owns these statues is a powerful person. And that means this art has power.
As a secured party and creditor, can you buy a home, a car, and other items you need and want? The answer is yes, and there are documents you use to do just that. Catch my radio podcast at Blog Talk Radio. Go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. Fill out the box with your email address that say join our mailing list, and I will send you my free report. You got credit problems? Contact me at tarhakadebtelimination.org. Let's stay in honor and get into the private.
everybody. We're back. Our special guest is Dr. Walter Williams, and we're discussing why did white people enslave the Negro in America. And we're going to continue on with our podcast. The number to dial in is 515-605-9757. Press 1 on your phone. That'll give me an indication that you got something to say. Dr. Williams, I'm back. Are you still with me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Okay. My position on what I was saying, Dr. Williams, is not only an investigation for my own family and our family members and stuff, and what I've actually seen, and I've been on our land and stretched for as eyes can see, and we've always been on this land. We didn't come here on a slave ship. Number two, when it comes to me personally, this is just my personal thing here, because I've managed to accumulate quite a bit of information to support my position and what I'm saying. I start with putting all of the land masses on this planet together in one landmass, fit just like a puzzle. So, and also know that Africa and America and South America and Australia and all of these places had to be linked together. And right there in his book, Dr. Ivan Van Serm, in his book that came before Columbus, there's a section there on plant life. And I deal with plants and growing trees and stuff. I deal with that every day. I got them all over here. All of them I grow from a seed. There, in his book, he describes that there are plants, and I've already been down there and looked at them. You can go right there to Florida City. My sister lives there. And you see plant life that you don't see nowhere else in the United States. In fact, he said that there are certain plants that's there that the only place that they grow is on the continent of Africa. So if you put the landmass together, you have one landmass, and that's where I begin to deal with history. I have two real good scholars that I've listened to, and I've acquired quite a bit of information and stuff. And what I'm going to go back over this stuff again. And this time, I'm going to take notes and stuff about different books and stuff where you can actually see the stuff. But it's right there on YouTube. You can actually go to YouTube and bring it up, and it'll explain to you what my position is based on the historical records. And this stuff has been hidden, concealed, banned out of school. Some of the authors have been banned. The books have been banned and all this stuff. But these people have managed to deep research to get a hold of this information and bring it to light. So I deal with the anthropological aspect. I deal with the archaeological aspect. I deal with the artifacts, information on the mound builders down here in Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, monuments and stuff in Florida, stuff on the Egyptian stuff out of Bimini, in Kentucky, Tennessee, California, Grand Canyon, and all this stuff. And I'm able to do an investigation on each part of the stuff. So that's why I come up with my position. I have one aunt. She she's threatened to knock me in the head. I said, well, I've been down there in South Florida. They say, yeah, that was your granddad and his brother's land. That land down. I know you talking about it. That was y'all land. But we ain't never came from no Africa. We always been here. I said, okay, calm down. But that's what my position is on that thing. I have thin lips. I don't have thick lips. Now I have interacted with Africans, and I had one African guy that I was dealing with. We was trying to put a program together, but he went south on me, And he seemed to have, of course, he probably already felt like, well, he had the attitude that he was better than me. I was like, well, how could that be? Because everything that we're doing, I created it. You haven't brought anything to the table. But anyway, that's what my position is on the deal about us being absolutely indigenous to this land. We're already here. Always been here. We didn't come over here on no slave ship. We didn't have to migrate from Africa. We were here on this land. Australia, the original Aboriginal people from Australia, they were here too. So that landmass was connected here. And then there are a whole species of people that no longer exist anymore. They were wiped out. They were killed. Matter of fact, let me see, what's the name of these people? I'll think of them in a minute, but the last one of them died. And they had you could see a photograph of them, this man and this woman on there. They died. And the whole you got animal species that are extinct. I remember when the last dusky sparrow, they had him in captivity. He was the last of his kind. He finally died. And all this stuff is covered up. It's not broadcast to us on a regular basis. You have to do the research. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take notes on this stuff, and then I'm going to bring it out so you could do an investigation on it. Let me know what you think.
Okay, well, like I said before, Brother Tarhaka, is this. Even though you may have a landmass without being boarded off to identify each racial group, you got to use common sense to say that these different indigenous humans on Earth had to live someplace. So you got different racial groups today living on this planet that we call Earth. They were not all mixed up. They were here. They were indigenous to their own personal land area. Again, you cannot get the Africans having two indigenous land regions on Earth. It's got to be indigenous only into one land area. The Chinese have to be indigenous.
You're right. You're right. The Africans is absolutely indigenous to Africa. You're right.
Okay. Now, another thing is this. During the time of slavery in this country, the United States of America, all African people were not enslaved. They were not slaves. You had over 500,000 free Negroes living in this country in free states. There's a movie out called 12 Years a Slave, where they took this free African brother who was living in New York City as a music teacher, and he had a wife and 2 children. And they drugged him in conversation with him and took him and kidnapped him and took him into a slave state and put him into slavery. So all African people living in this country were not slaves. Like I said, you had over 500,000 free African people. So I want the people to know that. But you got to give every human on this earth some place of being indigenous to. Okay? You got to give the Samoan people who live on the island called Samoa, you got to give them their indigenous to that land area. You got to give the Filipinos their indigenous land area as being Philippines, and et cetera, et cetera. You got to give the Japanese their land area called Japan. They're indigenous to that. So you can't be indigenous all over because you want to be. Okay? You can't do that. So that would be my answer, my brother.
And so do you believe do you think, or what's your opinion on, me and my family had at some point in the ancient past came to this landmass from Africa?
They came from, yes, they came from Africa. That's their indigenous homeland.
Okay.
They came over here. They traveled over here by boats. And they got in this hemisphere. And they settled over here. But that doesn't make them indigenous to this land.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. Okay. We have the Africans over there in Africa. So who were the people that has been on this land for hundreds of thousands of years on this land that we call America? Who is the original aboriginal, absolutely indigenous people on this land?
I would say that the people that we call the indigenous American Indian, and we don't know when the beginning of any race of people on earth. We don't know when the beginning of the Japanese people, their history began. We don't know the beginning of the Filipinos' existence living on this planet Earth. We don't know that. Samoans and so forth and so on. We don't know the indigenous date for these people, but we know that they live in these various land areas, okay? And they're indigenous to these various land areas. Everybody got their own indigenous land area where they originated from. So this is what you got to understand. See, these archaeologists out here are just talking shit. I put it like that, for lack of a better word.
Okay. All right. Well, we got to call him with a. He seems like he want to get back in. Let me open that phone line. Area code 347. You're back on the air. Come on in.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine, man. What's your question?
My question is from Dr. Van Sertima, like you said, wasn't it the Olmecs that was supposed to be the first Africans on this landmass?
What is your name, sir?
Shaheen Jones.
And where are you calling from?
I'm calling from New York City, Brooklyn.
Okay, Brooklyn. Okay, you just called just a little while back. So now, what was your question again now?
My question was, I was reading the book from Dr. Van Sertima. I believe it is, I forgot the name of the book, but he was basically saying that he don't give a specific date that I can remember, but he was saying that the Aboriginal people is Africans mixed with Asiatics. Because when they first come here, he said the first Africans here was supposed to be the Olmecs. The Africans, the Olmecs of America.
What did you say now?
The Olmecs was supposed to be the first Africans in the American landmass.
Well, you got to, I don't agree with Ivan Van Sertima.
All right.
I don't agree with that.
So would you agree that the natives have Mongoloid in them?
What natives are you talking about?
Like the Aztecs, the Incas, the Mayans, like that?
Well, you see, I don't know how I got here as a human being. You don't know how you got here as a human being. So I can't say what they have inside of them is correct or not correct. That's how they were born. That's how they are presented to the world. That's how they came out of their mother's womb. Okay? So you can't use anything coming from nature to identify a people as being, as to their indigeneity. You can't do that. So I don't agree with Ivan Van Sertima.
All right. because I was saying when they say the Olmecs, they said the pyramids that's built over here is supposed to be two biggest pyramids in the Americas, is the Sun Pyramid and the Moon Pyramid, and they said there's like a similar to the pyramids in Egypt, and they got the Olmec heads, which is similar to certain people that was from Egypt, I believe they were saying. But it's not only Dr. Van Sertima that says that. It's different scholars in general that says that the Olmec people came from Egypt in a certain point in time.
Who is they? What they are you talking about that said that?
Say it again. The they?
Who is the they that you are saying that?
Different scholars. I would have to go back to my book. But it's this in the scholar community. This is all what they're saying in general, that the Olmecs. This is how everyone else had the pyramids, like the Incas and the Mayans. This is where they learned how to build pyramid-like structures of a pyramid.
You see, I have to go back and find out where they're getting their information from, because I don't agree with that. Okay?
All right.
I don't care who they are.
So could I ask you one more question? I would say, how would you think that these pyramids in America, how would you think they got similar to the ones in ancient Egypt? That would be my next question.
How did they get similar to the ones in ancient Egypt?
Correct, yes.
What pyramids are you talking about in America?
The Sun Pyramid and the Moon Pyramid are supposed to be the two biggest pyramids in Americas.
Where are they located?
In Mexico.
Well, you can't go by that.
All right.
Because you got to know the history. Always learn the origin of what subject that you're talking about.
All right.
And who is bringing this idea or information to you. You got to investigate the investigator. You got to investigate.
All right. I will have to investigate Dr. Van Sertima, because he's the one who brought the Olmecs. The origin of the pyramids in America is supposed to go back to the Olmecs, and the Olmecs is supposed to be Africans from Egypt. So I will have to research that again then.
Right, you have to go back and study that again, because
okay.
I've been to the Olmec, to those mounds over there in Mexico. But anyway, go back and study a little bit more, because just study a little bit more is all I have to say to you.
All right, I just wanted to see if you have more information than I did on that. But thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, brother. Thank you for calling in. Okay, Dr. Williams, I'm going to go down here. We got another caller with his hand raised at 832. Area code 832. Tell us who you are, where you calling from. You're on the air.
Hi, my name is and I'm from the Caribbean.
Oh, welcome, sister. I've been waiting on you.
Oh, my gosh.
Come on in.
I'm telling you, you've heard a lot of people talk about our history and teach you things that you never knew, right? Because in the Caribbean, of course, white people tell us that we're the white man's burden, okay? That's what we've been taught in school, that we're the white man's burden. And but at the same time, when they're telling you that, you're still learning a history with the amount of things that your ancestors and you, because black people now have this false narrative that they're not enslaved. We're the same people who, whether we were on the boat in 1700 or the people who lived in 1650, that white people are controlling. It's just the same thing, And we have a narrative that we have got to change, because white people just keep rewriting stuff, and some of this stuff isn't really new because they don't need to change it, like the Bible stuff that they use. That stuff is so old, tired, and don't make no sense. If people would really read the book, they would see it doesn't really start off making any sense. In Genesis, there's more than one creation story. You can't create people before you create food. Does that make sense? You see what I'm saying? They just insert themselves where they don't belong. You know, with that same old Abraham story I heard you all talking about earlier. Abraham and his ragged wife was going from wherever they were from. I'm sure it was Egypt, right?
Okay.
And he actually had other men have sex with her, Laban and all kind of other people. You could read it. I'm not making this up.
Oh, yeah.
Before she got to Egypt, right? And then when she got to Egypt, I'm telling you what's written in the so-called Christian Bible, that she was considered the most beautiful woman in Egypt.
Okay.
Now, have you seen what the women in Egypt look like?
Yeah.
You're a dusty person supposedly coming to Egypt, but you're the most beautiful woman, and you're not just a foreigner, but whether you're an invader, and the king is going to see is just nonsense. White people teach us a lot of things that doesn't make sense and take our eyes off the prize, okay? That is part and parcel of the problem. And the one thing that I've learned from Mr. Williams, which is most important, is nobody has ever deciphered the hieroglyphs. And it's just a fact. You see somebody standing in front of a wall and telling you something, they're really showing you your king's name. That's it. You know? They can't read the whole wall, or they can't read the whole pylon. In this month's National Geographic, there's a story again with Champollion supposedly, you know, deciphering the hieroglyphs, but they're not really telling you anything. If somebody deciphers the hieroglyphs, why don't they just take a wall, any wall, one in Karnak, one in Luxor, not in the main pyramid, by the way. There's nothing written in there. That's why it's not a burial place, okay? But nobody ever does that. They just yammer on and on about nonsense that doesn't make any sense. And we just accept it. I mean, unless somebody was lucky enough to grow up. When I saw King Tut from a kid, I am looking at a black person, but because of what I've been told, I don't think he's black. Have you ever met anybody like that?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, they do that all the time.
Right. And all of the people in ancient Egypt, forget about when the Greeks come, you know, were black. Just garden variety black people. That's it. Cut and dry. They're black, they're white black. Even when they're saying that's what's the name Nefertiti is supposed to be from Mitanni, right? Which is a country supposedly above Syria. But she is black. So if she's black and she looked just like Amenhotep the third, the fourth, or the third, whoever she married, well, her parents must have been black above Syria. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make no sense. If they tell it,
well, right? So our sense of history is just really off. You know, what I know Ivan said about here is that they have the biggest statue on what we would call North, Central, and South America look like black males. They're black men. Nobody's making that up. But we are not claiming that we are, I mean, white people are the ones that write and say the Olmecs are the originators of the civilization here, right? Along with, I saw this thing on 60 Minutes where, you know, they say that the so-called Native American, whatever that is, they have all kind of looks. The people in Panama is black like nobody's business with straight hair. Okay, the ones on them in Alaska look like people from China. So we are just all non-white people, and what white people do is divvy us up to cause confusion. Okay? Before Nelson came out of prison, if a white guy, if a Japanese guy went to Japan to work, they had to classify him as white for him to go there to work. Okay, but it's because that's what they do. You can find this out. There's nothing unusual about it. But if you're Japanese and you're born in South Africa and live there, you're not considered white. They make arbitrary changes for their control.
That's right.
Okay? this argument about, who was where. Well, Egypt, nobody can take away from us, and we can't let that go because that is the center of everything we've done, and it is massive. All right? When you go to, even in Europe, they find these Venuses that look like black women. They're all in Czechoslovakia. They're in Germany. They're all over the place. All right?
Okay.
So we've got to read with some sort of perspective and realize who is doing most of the writing.
That's right.
So the people who are telling us where we belong are white people. And they lie all the time, and they misdirect us. Okay? That's it. Plain and simple. For instance, at the bottom of the Sphinx, the Sphinx of all Sphinxes, there is a stele that's there. And I saw it. And the thing just looked out of place. And the person who was running the trip said, oh, it's a Menapta stele where the Egyptians had a relationship with the people in Israel. What does that mean to you? And you could just look. You could look at the stele, just get from, if you know anybody who's going to Egypt, get them to take a picture and show you. The thing just looked like somebody cut a slab of stone and just mortared the shit down there and just write on it. It's crap. So, if you don't have a sense of yourself and history, you believe all the nonsense you're being told. What we know today as Israel, right, is right next to Gaza, which is right next to Egypt. It's kind of like somebody's trying to tell me that, let's just use a king, anyone you want to pick. When they got, because white people say in the future, after they've already enslaved us, that when you get to, because Gaza is in Egypt, you know that, right? Gaza is in Egypt. It hasn't moved. And it's taken up most of the coastline of what Israel is. So it's like, were we going to be living there at one time? Yes, we were. A friend of mine went to Australia, and Australia had black people.
Right.
I'm talking about that variety of black people, not even black people with ultra straight hair, okay? They have to be kind of soft, but it's all curly. It's just black people that look like people from Guinea. They're black. Okay, they're not even looking like the people from New Zealand or them other islands, okay? Them and the people in Papua New Guinea, just plain old garden variety black people. If you go to Australia now, a friend of mine went to Australia on vacation, and she did not see one black person.
Well, they driven them all out back in the outback, and it just doing the same thing that they're doing in Israel and Palestine, driving the people off of the land. That's their land.
Right. Our numbers have diminished. It's like what they do in South Africa. When white people start going to Australia, they bring a bunch of, I don't want nobody to get mad at me. I'm just telling you the name that they call these people, okay? The Chinese and Indian people and all kind of other people with them. That's what they do. They go to South Africa, they do the same thing. That's why that guy from India that everybody get excited with, Mahatma Gandhi, I do not like that man. He begged white people at the post office in Johannesburg or wherever. They had two doors, one for blancos and one for whites. He begged them to make another door so the Indians don't have to go in through the same door with us. But black people in America just keep paying attention to him like he's some sort of savior. That man don't like us.
Well, I know that. I've had a guy from this man here. He was from Belize, and I went in the store, and he saw me wearing my cultural outfit on, and he come up with a statement. Well, I'm from Belize, and our country was never colonized. And he just kept saying that, and I was like, well, okay, well, what does that make you? Does that make you some kind of special something? Okay, so your country was never colonized, so if it was never colonized, it was so great. Why aren't you there, and why are you over here? Well, my country was never colonized. I said, well, that's supposed to make you better than me or something?
Tarhaka, I tell you something which is a fact. In the Caribbean, in the black people have been fighting against white people for the longest while, okay? And some black people have been very successful, like the people in Haiti. That is why you must bow to every Haitian and help every Haitian that you can. When you get a chance, you should get a picture of the citadel that we built, okay? The Haitians built to repel the French. They didn't just fight against the French. They fought against the British and the Spanish. And because of that war that we fought, that's why they had to end so-called classical slavery. Okay? But nobody's going to teach you that in school. Off on the island of St. Vincent, a bunch of, I'm going to say garden variety black people and natives, okay, fought against the British. And kind of halfway won, but the British sent them up to like Belize and Honduras to live. Okay?
Okay.
They're called Garafunas. So I don't know who in Belize is telling you that they've never been whatever, because white people is the one that make up the map and all them pretty colors that you see on there. You're going to live your black self in there, and you can't move without a passport. And they're the ones that give them out.
So this guy here runs a little store right down the street. I don't go in there no more. But Dr. Williams is here. You want to holler at Dr. Williams?
Yeah, definitely. So Dr. Williams?
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Hello, Doctor. Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit more about, us being in Europe and the things that we've done? Before you answer my question, I'll tell you something that, again, which hinted to me why when I hear you talk about us building Europe, it's not like a surprise. I was watching some program on TV, and they were showing a church in Germany, and they were saying that the Moors are the ones that put in the windows, the glass windows, because the Germans didn't know how. And it's kind of like, your ear perk up. But they're not going to tell you that everything, Like the patron saint of Germany is a black guy. And they have places in France that's called Plain of the Morin and, whatever. But please answer. Let me stop talking.
Now, what's your question?
What I'm saying is for you to give us more of an explanation of more of the things that we've in Europe, because I saw a picture of Isabella and her husband, and he had, a kind of headdress that Muslims wear, because he have the crescent on it at his feet, okay?
Okay.
And at the palace and in the Prado, you saw this the soldier with his foot on a black man's neck, and he has a bunch of, he's half naked, of course. They like to show us like we don't wear clothes, and he had some arrows in his hand.
Okay.
So tell us more about what we built in Europe.
Tell us more about what now?
What we built in Europe.
Oh yeah, well, as you know, the people that is known in history as the Moors, once the Spanish Inquisition, Roman Inquisition came in 1478, they scattered into different parts of Europe. They were already in the bordering state of France, which borders Spain. They were over there building and so forth and so on. So it's not a surprise that they were the ones that had the technique and the technology to build buildings. The Europeans did not have that technology. And we talk about during the time of the Renaissance era, the 15th and 16th century. They didn't have that type of knowledge to build. So it was incumbent on the Africans of ancient Egypt, which are known in history as the Moors, to do that building all throughout Europe and so forth and so on, because they didn't have that technology to do that. So, so you have to figure and study further into the things that I'm saying. And like you mentioned, that the Europeans have taken this Bible to try to justify certain things in history that happened. You can't do that. The Bible is a book that has to be believed in. So if you don't believe the stories in the Bible, then they're worthless. So therefore,
plus it's a book without dates.
Without who?
It's a book that has no dates.
Right. They have no dates in it. So therefore, why should you use something as the Bible to try to justify human history? You can't do that. And if you notice it, that the Bible is always referring, no matter what people they're talking about, no matter what time in history they're talking about, they're going to bring in some Jews all the time. They'll have some Jews around. So something is wrong with that. And I'm going to tell you something else. Any publication that I get, it's a bi-monthly magazine called Biblical Archaeology Review. I read in the Biblical Archaeology Review about the archaeological community. They said that when they have digs, they plant artifacts that they want to be found the next day. They go out late at night and put them and plant them there.
Well, you're right. You're right.
The next day. So
they do that.
That's right. So you can't go by what they said. That's the reason why I asked the young man, who is they? That word they is very, very important. Okay? Yeah. That they say is very, very, very misleading because you don't know who they are saying that.
Right. Exactly.
So, so you got to be very, very careful.
Yeah.
And then I was listening to 60 Minutes one Sunday evening.
Ooh.
And they were talking about archaeology and the science of archaeology, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the guests on there, who I think he was a pawnbroker or whatever the case may be, he said that the archaeologists are the biggest liars on earth.
Yeah.
I didn't put those words in. He said the archaeologists are the biggest liars on earth.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't go by what archaeology
say. And there are two examples that is just so very obvious. Remember when they brought that cloth out several years ago saying that was the covering of Christ? With all
Shroud of Turin.
The whatever of Turin, remember?
Yeah,
Shroud of
Turin. And then after a while, they had to say it was a fake. And another thing that's a big lie in the past couple of years is all of these things they found in a place called Qumran that they said had all of these writings. Those people weren't writing on no paper back then. They were writing on sheepskin, and that stuff would have rotted. They just lie.
Right.
Well, that's the same thing that they was doing with the what you call them, the Dead Sea Scrolls. They come out with that junk.
That's what it was, exactly.
To support
just nonsense.
A Jew, biblical biblical revolution.
I don't call people. No, you know why I don't just call a white person a Jew? Because there's black people from Ethiopia that's called Jews, and the white people in Israel mistreat them. After they send a big-ass plane up there to pick them up on Operation Moses or whatever it was called, okay?
Right.
And I remember reading an article at the height of AIDS when these people really keep to themselves, okay? And they gave blood, and the white people in Israel threw the blood away and said that they had AIDS. And these people don't mix with other people. So I don't refer, I make it very simple. If I'm talking to a person, I don't want to hear, like for instance, we kind of use the word African because it's gotten into vogue, but I don't particularly refer to myself as an African, because to me, an African is an Afrikaner who's a white man in Southwest Africa and Southern Africa, okay? But we're not going to argue that point, you know? So I'm very yuck with how you use words, and try to give a word one particular meaning, because anytime a word starts meaning a whole bunch of things, you're going to get in trouble, you know, or you're going to have to be explaining yourself. So when somebody tell me that they're a Jew, I would ask them what it is a Jew does that no one else does, and that cannot be explained. Okay, so it's, you know, it really could end up having all kind of arguments. You see where, oh Lord, here we go. Whoopi Goldberg, I have heard that woman say that she's Jewish along with Sammy Davis Jr. I heard her say that. And on television the other day, she got into trouble. All righty? So there's just three groups of people on this planet. White people are racist, white people who said they're not racist, which really is a waste of time, white people, because they're not doing anything to help us, and non-white people. All right? I would ask people who appear to be black, but they call themselves all kind of names of places and languages, and you can't argue with people. The only time I argue with people about when they start using languages and places is when they try to claim our music. That's the only time I get in an argument. But I don't care what people call themselves, because a lot of people think that they're white people in waiting, and they're not. White people are just using them against garden variety black people like us. Just imagine the soldiers, white soldiers, rampage a place and rape some black women, right? The child that's born is not going to be in favor of the mother or the black man that could have been a potential parent because of what they've been taught. Make sense?
That's right. That's right.
So that
Racism
is
is
what
taught.
we're dealing with. Right. So that is what we're dealing with. So we have a bunch of people who, I could use Mexico as an example. When the Spanish kind of got to Mexico, they made it their business to, it's called mestizoizing. They wrote about it. It's not like it's some secret. All right? That's what they did. It was easy to be done in South Africa because in South Africa there's a lot of brown-skinned people. Everybody there is not jet black, right? So they make this colored. These people, a whole section of people, it didn't take them 1,000 years. That's called coloreds in South Africa, that they give a specific designation. You know, where I think I heard somebody was saying this one guy that was a boxer, that white people said he was white and then reclassify him. I really wish you would get somebody who's older from South Africa to be on your show to explain how things happened before Nelson got out of prison and the problems that people in South Africa were having with white folks. Okay, in the South here, I remember reading one time that these black women used to have a paper bag test. You couldn't be part of the group if you were darker than a paper bag. You know, white people just put all kind of nonsense on us, and we fall for it. And we've got to stop. You know. Anyway, I've talked enough.
Well, I want to say this.
Yes, sir.
That Judaism is a religion, and any human on earth, no matter what race, creed, or color that they may belong to, can become a Jew. Like any person on earth can become a Christian. Any person on earth can become a Muslim, okay? So they're only religions, that's all. So a lot of people think that only white people are Jews, okay? That's only a man-made religion. Has nothing to do with reality. It's a religion, man-made. Okay? So that's what I want to
Yeah, but you're the one that explained. Remember, you were the one that I heard mostly explaining how they went to Ethiopia and did the big conversion there.
Right.
You know, and the only other place I kind of remember there was a lot of conversion of non-white people to Judaism is down in India, where they have some people who are Christian and Jewish down there. But the one in Ethiopia, you're the one I heard explain it as explicitly as possible. Yeah, but I'm just saying that you'll end up, if you, well, not you, nobody's going to argue with you, Mr. Williams, but you know that Mr. Jackson had called New York something town, and he ended up having to apologize, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jesse Jackson, yes, he called him.
Exactly.
What?
Hammertown.
Hammertown.
Exactly.
Hymies.
Right, exactly. So that's what I'm saying, to avoid a bunch of confusion and whatever. You're white, you're not white. That's all that matters. You know, you could, whatever your belief is, and the only thing you have to find out about somebody's belief is, what does your belief say you're supposed to do about me? And of course,
That's
they'll lie.
right. That's right.
You know, they'll just lie, right? Because their beliefs tell them to mistreat you, otherwise we wouldn't be having problems. But they'll lie and tell you all kind of things, like, you know, I remember one guy who told me he's Muslim was trying to explain to me that Bilal is the second most important person in Islam, but he's a helper of, I don't want nobody to get mad at me, he's a helper of Muhammad. No, you're not a helper, you're a slave. That's what you are. You're a slave and or a servant. If you're not a slave, you're a servant. Okay? And nothing is wrong with being a secondary person, but no, no. We're everywhere, any story that's written about us, we're always the lesser, you know? And as you could see in Egypt and these places, the people who, you know, like, you know, in Egypt, there are people who still call themselves Nubians, who tends to be dark. And you could tell their villages, now, you know, Egypt have changed. They have domes on their houses, which means you have to know master build that. And the houses that the so-called regular Arabs live in is just a flat roof. That's just a slab. You could just throw that up there, you know. All you have to do is make a measurement. Right. So this, you know, still in Egypt, you kind of could see some things. And even the people calling themselves Nubians, who have kind of straightish hair, they are not fond of the garden variety ones that look like, you know, let's say, oh, that's just another kind of Nubian, you know. So white people have done a job on us, and our duty is to use words correctly and stop, you know, just referring to ourselves the way we're not. There's no ugly people. You can't add black with ugly. That doesn't make any sense. You know, I don't see anybody saying white and ugly. Why are you saying black and ugly, you know? So we've got a way to go, and the people who have lived before us have really tried their best to teach us, but because we don't write stuff, we don't have any continuity. So it's kind of like each generation, for the lack of a better word, have to keep redoing things. You see what I'm saying? And that doesn't make any sense, you know? And white people do promote things, you know, like when black people are talking about their history, then they start from 1600s. Like what were we doing before then? Nothing. We were just, you know, we were doing things before then. It's just that you don't know because white people burned the shit down. It's burnt down and it's tore up. You can't find any books in Mexico. Those people in Mexico built what they built. You can't even make a decent shopping list if you don't write it down. Are you going to go to the grocery and buy 200 items and don't write it down? You must have the world's best memory. You see what I'm saying? But you don't see any books out of Mexico because the Spanish burnt them and just kept a couple. And then would on television would tell you, you're looking at them standing next to a pyramid or a massive building, and they're telling you that the people in Mexico kept time by putting knots in a rope. Does that make sense? No.
Oh, boy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Williams.
Let's take a little break and then we'll be right back, okay? Hold on.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. We'll take a little break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back. The number to dial into the broadcast is 515-605-9757. Y'all hold on a minute.
All right, so now we're in this website. It's from the Museum of Agropolis. It's a French, I guess, Museum of Agriculture, Agropolis. And it says here, Egypt was called by its people Tamari. Again, Egypt was called by its people Tamari, not by Greeks, Romans, or white Europeans, or other, people that are not from that region or from this culture, civilization. Again, the people who are actually from this culture and civilization, they called it Tamari, meaning the beloved land, which is cultivated by the hoe, whatever that means. There were other descriptive names of Egypt, such as Ta'ankh, meaning the land of blood and fertile soil, Kemet, fertile soil, black soil. You know we have black and fertile soil here in America, very abundantly, meaning the black soil. Nahet, meaning land of sycamore tree, and Mizr, the safe and civilized country. And now we're in this book. It's called A Book of the Beginnings by Gerald Massey. And it says here, according to Aulus Gellius Diodorus, Egypt was named Aeria, the Egyptian Aur, later Aer. But look at this, Aeria. Just add an M between the A and the E. What do you get? Ameria, right? Ameria, Aeria. All right. The Egyptian Ar, later Aer, in the name of the river Hebrew Er. Aeria is the land of the river, possibly with the further meaning of the pure, as Ia means to wash, whiten, purify. Another name of Egypt is Tamari. Again, another name of Egypt is Tamari. Again, Tamarikan, Tamarik, the Tamariqua, Tamari, Tamarikans. Ta is to drop, heap, deposit, type. Mary is the inundation. Tamari is land thus deposited. The vulgar English to ta is a child's word, and it means to deposit soil. Also, Tamari reads the gift of inundation, the gift of the goddess Mary, the goddess Mary, or Mary, who had dual form as Mary Rest, south, and Mehi, north. Egypt is also designated the land of the eye. All right, so that's interesting. So Mary Rest, south, what are we talking about? South America, and Mehi, Mexico, Mehi, North America. All right, now we're going to read from the Sondervan Encyclopedia of the Bible, Volume 2. All right, a lot of you know about this Bible. And it says here, names of Egypt. The ancient Egyptians had several terms for their homeland. Kemet, the black land, as opposed to the desert, the red land. Tawi, the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt. And Tamari, again, and Tamari, Tamarika, Tamari, a term of uncertain meaning. They don't know what it means. They're telling you that. But you know what? We all know what it means. It means Tamarika, the beloved land of the priest kings, the Khans. The English name Egypt derives from Greek Aegyptos, which in turn derives from Egyptian, and it says here, Pata, mention of the Ka spirit of the god Pita, or house of Pita, a name for Memphis, the ancient capital. All right? This term, already attested in the Armana letters of the 14th century BC as Hikupta, shows the use of a city named for the land. Conversely, the Arabic name of the land, Mazar or Mizr, also stands for Cairo, successor to Memphis. All right? So they're telling you that they had many names, but one of them was Tamari. Again, Tamari, which they don't know what it means. That's why they don't teach us about this. But they know, those in the elite circles, right, what Tamari is and where it was. All right, so we went through a lot of references, right, referring to Egypt as Tamari. This is one of them. It's called an Egyptian hieroglyphic dictionary with an index of English words, king list, and geographical list with indexes, list of hieroglyphic characters, Coptic and Semitic alphabets, etc. by Sir E.A. Wallace Budge. It says M.A. and L.I.T.T.D., Cambridge, Massachusetts. All right, and it says sometime scholar of Christ College, Cambridge. All right, and it says he was the keeper of the Egyptian and Assyrian Antiquities British Museum. So very important guy, scholar. This is volume 2. We're going to go into volume 1 and 2. All right, this is around 1920. All right. All right, so we're on page 815 in this book in volume 2, and we find here the word Tamerau, Tamerau, Tamari, Tamarau. What does it say? People of the land of the Nile flood. We're talking about the Mississippi, Colorado River, Grand Canyon. What are we talking about here? That's the real facts. All right, so dodge the hijack when you're thinking about Nile River today. So Tameru, the people of the land of the Nile flood. Example, the Egyptians. A Tameru is an Egyptian of the Nile flood of the Mississippi. Tameru. All right, now look at this. Remove the T, right, and remove the A in the bottom. What are you left with? You're left with Ameru, Amaru, Ameru, Tupac Amaru, Amaru, the plum serpent. Remember, Tameru, Amera, Tameri. All right.
Pyramid on the Nile in Northeast Africa doesn't have stair steps going up it. It doesn't have temples on top of its summits. They could not go and break through the boat on the temples atop those great pyramids. There are none there. And that was the clue that Egypt was writing about the Americas. And the deeper I got into the records, the clearer it got. They started actually saying, and because Amun loved that land so much, he said it's his beloved land, and that word was Mary, the beloved. Mary, M-E-R-I, Mary. And the land, of course, last before is Ta. So you have the land, the beloved land, Ta Mary. And they kept that name and just put the Ta on the end of it. So Ta Mary became a Mary Ta. We simply say America. We kept the name that Egypt gave to the Americas. So that was the big mystery behind that $10 million map that Martin Waldseemüller made and then put the name America on it in 1507. And then those who knew and those who were trying to hide things said, wait a minute, you can't put that name on here. And the next time he reprinted that map, it was off. It was gone. Because that's the name that Egypt had given the land, Tamari.
And we're back at this website called Rasta Life Wire. We've read from this before. This website, this brother got good blogs, and it says the Black African Kemites, Black Ancient Egyptians. It says Black is Ancient Kemet, Egypt. Several so-called distinguished authors have proposed the Egyptians called their country Kemet or Kemet, which means black, after the color of the soil. This twisted lie is not supported by any analysis of the ancient Egyptian language. There is nothing in the grammar suggesting that soil, or even earth, had any connection with the use of the word Kemet. So we just read in the other book it really meant like the city, right? Mizr or Mizraim. The only references to the soil in the names of ancient Egypt were the names of Tamari and Tamir. Ta meaning earth or land. So Tamarika, the land of Hamarika, Ameri. Alright? So anything related to soil in the names of ancient Egypt were the names Tamari, Tamir, Tamarika, Ameri, Ameri, Pana, Tamarik, Tamarikwa, Tamari. Alright? Alright, so now we're in the same book by the same author, but we're in volume 1 now. Alright? Page 315, we see the word or the sound Mera. Alright, hieroglyph says an ancient name of Egypt, an ancient name of Egypt. Mera, Pa, Tamera, Amera, America, Americana, remember? America, Americapana, Americapana, the land of Egypt, or the plum serpent, Mer. You know, and it seems a lot of people know about this name, Tamari. You know, it's not just me. This has been around, and you can see this Pinterest page. They're naming it Tamari / Kemet / Africa. Dodge the hijack, because what do we see here? Just take the T away. What do you get? Ameri, add a CA. America, America, Tamarican. We're in the website .co.com. It says, what did the ancient Egyptians call Egypt. It's all Greek to the Egyptians. The Odyssey Homer used Aegyptus to refer to the land of Egypt, meaning it was in use by the 8th century BC. Victorian sources suggest Aegyptus, a corruption of Hakapita, home of the soul of Pita. Alright, so Egypt doesn't mean Kemet or black soil, it means something to do with the house or home of Pita, which in turn goes back into what it says here that was the Egyptian name for the city of Memphis. That was the city of Memphis, and what are we talking about? Tennessee, the Nile, the Mississippi, where Pita, the potter creator god, was chief deity. But there was a fellow named Aegyptus who plays a big role here too. Now it says further down here, it says Kemet first made its appearance around the 11th dynasty, around the same time as another term, the beloved land, or Tameri. You see, T-A-M-E-R-Y now, Tameri, the beloved land. So it came around the same time, Kemet and Tameri. Alright? Perhaps, as scholar Argan Gulis suggests, these monikers came out of a need to emphasize national unity after the chaos of the first intermediate period. So again, another name, the beloved land, Tameri, the beloved land. We miss our beloved land, the ancient land, the legends. We're talking about America before they got to Africa. That was their beloved land. Alright, where their ancestors came from before they settled in Africa. The beloved land, the fertile land.
All that I know, they teach us to mind your master and your missus.
Been slaves all our lives. My mother was a slave, my sister was a slave, father was a slave.
They treat me nice as they could treat me. And if I want anything, I'll ask for it. I was taught it that way by my old master.
These are the voices of former slaves, victims of one of America's greatest crimes against humanity. Listening to them speak and hearing their lamentations does a different level of justice than history books ever could. John Henry Folk was a storyteller and radio show host who in 1941 started doing interviews with former slaves in a project to bring awareness to racism. One former slave he interviewed was Fountain Hughes. Little did Folk realize this interview would be one of his most important.
My name is Fountain Hughes. I was born in Charlottesville, Virginia. My grandfather belonged to Thomas Jefferson. My grandfather was 115 years old when he died. And now I am 101 years old.
Although many slaves were kidnapped or abducted, Hughes was different. He was born of slaves, as was his father. He didn't know any other life.
It's what they call, we were slaves. We belonged to people. They sell us like they sell horses and cows and hogs and all like that. Have an auction bench, and they put you up on the bench and bid on you, the same as you're bidding on cattle, you know.
The auction bench was an infamous place among slaves. Here people would learn not only who their future masters would be, but exactly what price a person could put on another person.
Sell the women, sell the men, all that. And then if they had any bad ones, they'd sell them to the nigger traders, what they call the nigger traders, and they ship them down south and sell them down south.
After leaving the auction, they would be at the whims of their new masters. Of course, when someone is considered to be a piece of property rather than a person, little is done to make them comfortable. Deplorable living conditions, tattered and worn-out clothes, and sometimes a bare minimum of food were all that slaves were given.
A lot of people didn't have no beds when they were slaves. You know, slept on the floor, patted here, patted there. Just like a lot of wild people, we didn't know nothing. Didn't allow you to look at no book.
Often, the slaves were only dressed in what they showed up in, made mostly of rag and cloth. The lucky ones may have had a pair of shoes or some denim.
So I never wore no shoes until I was 12 or 13 years old. And now people put on shoes on babies, you know, when they're month old. I don't know. Put shoes on babies just as soon as you see them out in the street, they got shoes on.
Not much attention was given to the slaves' diet. More times than not, they would only have things like soups or stews made from the scraps of the master's dinner.
Wooden tray, dug out, you know, all about that long. And all of them, you know, would get around that tray with spoons and just eat. Sit you like mush or soup or something like that. And all them children get around there and just eat.
Slaves had no weekends, no holidays, no days off. Each day was filled with nothing but work and meeting the needs of the masters.
Night never comes out. You have nothing to do. Time to cut tobacco. If they want you to cut all night long out in the field, you cut. And if they want you to hang all night long, you hang tobacco. It didn't matter about your tired, being tired, you're afraid to say you're tired.
It wasn't a sense of duty that compelled the slaves, nor was it a love for their owners. A cloud of dread hovered over them, as the smallest infraction could mean a painful punishment, usually in the form of beatings. Former slave Laura Smalley described what she saw one day when another slave woman earned a whipping after her master's mistress tried to slap her and she fought back, pushing her into a chair.
But the thing that poor old woman carried in the peach orchard and whipped her. And, just tied her hand this way, around the peach orchard tree. I remember that just as well, looked like to me, I can, and round the tree and whipped her. And well, she couldn't do nothing but just kick her feet, just kick her feet. But it just had her clothes all down to her waist, Just didn't have her plumb naked, but they had her clothes down to her waist. And every now and then they'd whip her, and then snuff the pipe out on her, She snuffed pipe out on her.
There's just no way that we can sit here and actually believe that somehow magically the first original indigenous people of Egypt were not black. Of course they were black. What else could they have been? Most of the people who are living in Cairo and Alexandria and much of Lower Egypt, which is northern Egypt, they're not what we would typically consider black or black African. However, in Upper Egypt, Southern Egypt, everyone is black, everyone is African. The culture there is black African culture. And before you jump on me again, I just want to say that I lived in Egypt for 2.5 years, and I made a lot of Egyptian friends, and a lot of them are black. Yes, a lot of them are black. Let me show you. Right. Okay. Now, I don't understand how people can sit here and say that Egyptians are not black, right? So the people that you just saw, the little black children playing with the camel, and my friend, they are Nubian. And a lot of people will sit here and say like, oh, Nubians aren't really Egyptian. Well, actually, sir and ma'am, Nubians are the only people in Egypt today who still speak a pharaonic language, meaning they still speak a language that was spoken by the pharaohs themselves. No other group of people in Egypt still has preserved an ancient aspect of their culture like the language. Everybody else in Egypt speaks Arabic. Arabs do not come from Egypt originally. And that's one thing I wanted to get back to. So if you didn't know, the Nile starts in Uganda, which is a country in Central Eastern Africa. And everybody in Uganda is black, right? There are many Nile basin countries. Uganda is one, Ethiopia is another, then there's Tanzania, then there's Sudan, which is South Sudan, and South Sudan. And Sudan and South Sudan are known for having some of the darkest people, the darkest, blackest Africans in the whole continent. Alright? Another point I wanted to make is, connecting to this point about the Nile starting in Uganda, the first people to come from Egypt came from the Nile. And since the Nile starts in Uganda and not some mystical place in Asia, it's logical to connect the dots and say, the first people had to come from this place in Africa where plenty of black people originate from. Like, why is this so hard for so many people to come to grips with? Egypt, at the end of the day, Egypt is in Africa. Egypt is an African country. And yes, there are many people in Egypt that are not of African descent because Egypt was colonized for thousands of years by a lot of different types of people. Egypt was colonized by the Romans. It was colonized by the French. It was colonized by Arabs. It was colonized by Turkish.
by the Turkish, by the Ottomans. And so as a result, today, Egypt is a very mixed country. Racially, ethnically, it's very mixed. And you can see that in the people. But at the end of the day, the first people from Egypt came from Africa because Egypt is in Africa. And if someone wants to jump in and say, well, Sinai, what about Sinai? That's not in Africa. Okay, let me tell you something about the Sinai Peninsula. The Sinai Peninsula, first of all, it's contested whether that's Asia or Africa or not, number one. Number two, Egypt hasn't always owned Sinai. Sinai was controlled and owned by Israel at one point. Sinai was controlled and owned by Saudi Arabia at one point. So, all of that aside, mainland Egypt is in Africa, so by default, the original people of Egypt are black Africans. And it's kind of obvious because, like I said, the only people in Egypt who still speak an ancient pharaonic language that came from the ancient Egyptians, that came from the ancient pharaohs, are black. They are not the light-skinned Turkish people that you see. They are not the Arabs. They are not the descendants of Europeans living in Egypt. They are black Africans. So please feel free to leave comments. I welcome trolls. I welcome all types of people wanting to chime in.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we back. And if you have a question, the number to dial in is 515-605-9757. Our special guest is Dr. Walter Williams. We're going to be bringing him back in a moment. And so y'all hold on a minute. We're going to take another little quick, and then we'll be coming back with our special guest, Dr. Walter Williams. Y'all hold on a second. everybody. We're back. Our special guest is Dr. Walter Williams, and tonight's topic is why did white people enslave the Negro in America? And I'm going to open up Dr. Williams' line here so we can finish our discussion. Dr. Williams, are you still with me?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me, Dr. Tarhaka?
Yes, sir. You come across loud and clear. You have any comments on the information that we ran on the plugs there?
Well, there's a lot of confusion out there about ancient Egypt. One has to remember one thing, that the ancient Egyptians did not write a history of themselves. So whatever's out there is being conjured up by people who has the authority or think they have the authority to talk about ancient Egypt. But the bottom line and the main line is this, that the ancient Egyptians did not write a history of themselves. And I'm bringing that out in my new book that's coming out by the end of the year or the first of next year. It's called Dispelling Myths of Ancient Egypt. So that's the main thing I wanted to say about that. All these different European white experts get out there on the internet and they talk like they are an authority on ancient Egypt. They don't know a damn thing about ancient Egypt. Okay? They're out there styling out there, you know. And they're talking about something they don't know nothing about. Now, to the brother that called up about asking me questions about the Quran and about the AIU and about, Islam and so forth and so on, I want the brother to get my book, The Historical Origin of Islam. And in that book, The Historical Origin of Islam, by me, Walter Williams, on page 69, I'll tell you that the first meeting in Islam's history was in 1926. That meeting was called by the newly elected king of Egypt, Abdul Aziz al-Saud. He called that meeting in 1926. So the first meeting in Islam's history was in 1926, and I give you all the minutes of that meeting in that particular section of my book. So again, my brother that you called about the AIU, and we discussed about that, I'm going to give you some additional information in my book, page 69. I'll give you the first meeting in Islam's history, 1926, and all the minutes that was spoke about in that meeting. Another thing I want to bring out, Brother Tarhaka, is this. The word white people, the word or the term white people were created and used in 1681. Prior to 1681, there was no such term or people as white people. Now, there's a narration on your YouTube or wherever that you may pull it up. It's a white woman out there that's lecturing on just that point. The term white people were invented in 1681. So that's something for you to check out. Now, I have two books that I have written. One called The Historical Origin of Christianity. And the thesis of that book is saying there's never been a man that ever walked the earth in human form of any race, creed, or color by the name of Jesus Christ never existed. It's mythology. It's a farce. My second book is entitled the historical origin of Islam. There's never been a man that wore every uniform by the name of a Prophet Muhammad of Islamic tradition never existed. So you can purchase those books from my brother in Chicago by the name of Yoel, who has a bookstore called the Underground Bookstore. And his phone number is 773-947-8662. 773-947-8662. And you could purchase that book from Brother Yoel. Or maybe I gave you the wrong phone number for Yoel. I'm sorry. Yoel's phone number in the Underground Bookstore is 773 687-8869. So if you can call that number, you can order my books from Yoel. Or you can go to your local bookstore in your area where you live, and you can order my books from that bookstore. Or you can go online to Amazon, and you can purchase my book through both books through Amazon. The Historical Origin of Christianity, the Historical Origin of Islam. They are selling my books. So that's what I have to say to close this hour, these 3 hours out. Unless you have any questions or anything else you want to say, Tarhaka, to me?
No, that's all. That pretty much concludes the broadcast. You've answered all the questions, and you gave us your take and stuff. And I've gotten Brother Yoel's information out there for those people who want to get your books. Just put it in the chat room, 773-687-8869. The Underground Bookstore by Brother Yoel. And we've done a wonderful job. And let's see, we got another caller with his hand raised here, area code 334. Area code 334, you're on the air. We only have a few minutes left. Please be brief. Come on in.
Okay, I'm John Thompson here, Ozark, Alabama. I just want to say hello there, Brother Tarhaka and Dr. William. I heard Layman Carter on tonight and heard other people I hadn't heard before. But I just wanted to say hello to everybody. And I was just in listen mode tonight.
Okay.
Thank you, Brother Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you.
And another thing, Tarhaka, I want to say something about our guest that we had on, Sister I. She was terrific. She has a lot of knowledge. She's well-traveled, and that's the reason why I wanted her on, to give us some more commentary on the subject that we're talking about. And so I want to congratulate her on a job well done. Thank you, my sister. I appreciate you coming on. So I hope that everybody in the listening audience have learned something from this broadcast tonight. And I want to thank you, Brother Tarhaka, for giving the correct phone number to the Underground Bookstore. I bumbled that, so thank you for making that correction for me. And another thing I want to tell the listening audience, that I want to thank you, Brother Tarhaka, for having this program with me on it. Without you, our African community could not hear the conversations that we bring up on this program. So you are the one that is responsible for that. And so I want to give thanks to you for doing that and creating this show, giving me a platform to bring this information to our listening audience in the African community, which I feel that they so badly need. So you are the one to be thanked for having me on the last Sunday of every month. Thank you, Brother Tarhaka.
You're quite welcome, Dr. Williams, and I certainly appreciate you being available to come on to the broadcast. And we do this at the end, and we try to do this at the end of the last Sunday of the month. And so y'all stay tuned for next month. We'll get our topic lined up and stuff, and we'll be right on bright. So I'd like to say thanks to everybody for listening to the broadcast. I hope you all got something out. And Dr. Williams, I'm going to go ahead on and close down the broadcast until next time. Appreciate you being on here, and I'd like to say may out hotep to you, my brother.
May out hotep, my brother. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that next week we'll be back on. I'll be either be discussing law or I'll have another guest that'll be on here with us, and y'all make sure you tune in. And but anyway, I certainly appreciate it, and like to say good night to everybody. Okay?
Egypt has always traditionally been given prominence as the height of ancient culture. Nubia is now coming into its own and is being understood to be of equal importance. It is different from ancient Egypt, but it is equally important and not just an adjunct to this Egyptian culture. What archaeologists do when they pull material from the ground or when they translate texts, they bring their own cultural baggage to that interpretation and the baggage of the times that they live in. And so it's imperative that we go back and continually reassess the things that we take as facts. Many of the early archaeologists came to the study of ancient Egypt and ancient Nubia from the perspective of Semitic languages or the study of the Hebrew Bible, and it was very important to them to bring Egypt specifically into the sphere of biblical studies. And so they had to carve Egypt away from Africa to bring it into that sphere. And the way that they did that was they used race. So these early archaeologists effectively made ancient Egypt white in the sense that they made it part of a dominant Western culture, and ancient Nubia was separated from that. It was black. And this was how they took Egypt out of Africa and put it into this Semitic sphere, this biblical sphere. And it's only in recent decades, the last 3-4 decades, that Egyptology has really moved away from that, and scholars who are studying Nubia are really given the chance to give a voice to this Nubian material that it wasn't given much of a chance to have in the past. When someone asks me what was the ancient Egyptians' view of X, I immediately think of a two-pronged view, because the ancient Egyptians had an official view of many things, and this is the view that would be put up on the walls of temples and on the walls of the tombs of the elites. That was an official, let's say, state-sanctioned view. That bore little to no resemblance to what people actually may have thought. It was the official view. So when you look at Nubia as depicted on the walls of temples in Egypt, you will see Nubians being crushed under the chariot wheels of the king. You will see Nubians being dragged back to Egypt enslaved. What we see on the ground in terms of archaeological evidence is quite different. We see people who had Nubian names, people who were using Nubian material culture, living within Egypt, working in Egypt, marrying people with Egyptian names. So something quite different from the very intense militaristic scenes that you see in temples. When George Reisner excavated Kerma, he found the statue, a large, beautiful statue of Senui, and also a statue partially destroyed of Jaffa Happy, her husband. It was a very large tomb, and with size in Egypt and in Nubia, we tend to assume ruler, or someone very important, which usually translates to ruler. We now understand, yes, this was a ruler's tomb. It is a completely different time period than Jaffa Happy and Senui lived in. Much later, we understand it to be a local ruler, so it was a Kerman official, who, for reasons we can guess at, brought or had these two statues brought to Kerma and put in his tomb. It could have been an appropriation of Egyptian culture in general, just to show that, yes, I can own these things that are Egyptian wonderful works of art. Because what we're saying, if you read between the lines, is whoever owns these statues is a powerful person. And that means this art has power.